Welcome back. We're talking about logistic regression. This is I think it's the fourth video in the series, but if this is the first time you're watching this series and this is where you've landed, don't worry. We'll get you up to speed in just a few seconds. You can go back, watch the other videos if you want, but you don't need to. Essentially, logistic regression, in a nutshell, is you've got an outcome variable which is binary, always binary, a binary outcome, yes, no, up, down, male, female. In this case, diabetes or not diabetes. And then you've got a series of predictive variables. Here they are. And you want to know the extent to which any one or combination of these may help you predict what that outcome variable is going to be. Okay, so, and here for glucose, we've got lots of glucose, glucose low, lots of people without diabetes, glucose high, lots of people with diabetes. And here is the logistic model. And you can see that the probability goes up as the glucose goes up. Probability of getting diabetes. Okay. On this YouTube channel, we're creating R programming videos on everything. In this video, really what we're going to talk about is how do we add variables to our model, okay? And it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. We're just going to summarize. Here is our original model. So we created a model using the linear regression function, but we said the family is binomial, so this is what makes it into a logistic regression model. We start with our outcome variable, diabetes, always binary. We then added glucose as a predictive variable. We said the data is the data, and we called the model, and this is what we got down here. Now, this was reasonably easy to interpret because we just sort of said you can ignore the intercept because the glucose of 0 is meaningless. This intercept, this estimate here for glucose, right, is statistically significant, so happy days, and it's positive. And so we said, and by the way, the number it's the natural logarithm of the odds. But think of it as a proxy for the probability or the risk or the likelihood. It's positive, so as glucose goes up, risk of diabetes goes up, and we saw that in the plot. Now, we want to add an additional variable to that. So let's do that. I'm going to go to here, add variable. And by the way, if you're watching my videos for the first time, all of there'll be a link at the end of the video, and you can click on it, and you can get access to this entire this whole this web page, this HTML document, and in it I've got all of the code that I use, and that's the one example where I don't have the annotations, and usually I've got annotations in the margins over here, and you can sort of see what I've done. I explain the code in the annotations. This is maybe the only block where I didn't put the annotations in, which is I just didn't think I needed to because I've just done this kind of code so many times in this document. Anyway, here we are. The same thing, we're creating a model. We're using a linear model function, but we're calling it family binomial. That means it's going to be logistic regression. Outcome variable in the beginning, then we say it's going to be looked at by glucose. And then here we go, we got plus age. Now, the reason I want you to take note of the plus is there are circumstances into which we put a star there, not a plus, right? And that's when we're looking for interaction terms that with effect modifications. We're going to come back to that in another video. But what I want you to remember is that when you're just adding a variable, you just put in a plus and you add the next variable, and you can add many, many, many variables. But the key is, in my view, people do this differently, is to do these one at a time. So do glucose, then do age. And a lot of people would do univariate analysis on the variables first. So do age by itself, then add them together. But we're going to talk about how to build the model in another video. This video is about once you've added another variable, how do you decide if that was a mistake or not? Because did it improve the model or not? And how do you interpret the results? Okay, let's have a look. So we've got this model. Then you do a summary model, and out pops this over here. That's the summary of the model. Right, what have we got here at the top? Basically, that is the code that we wrote. Intercepts, again, we're going to ignore that because it's not meaningful in this particular model. Now, here we've got glucose, which is positive. Now, just to remind you, the glucose is positive and it's statistically significant. And age is positive and is statistically significant. So the first thing that I want you to point out is that if age is statistically significant, then this is a contender to be included in the model. Sometimes you'll do this, you'll add a variable and it will not be statistically significant and therefore is not a good candidate to be included in the model. So we're starting the process of thinking about building the model, adding variables, building up a cohort of variables that we think will give us the best chance of predicting diabetes or not diabetes. Got it? Okay. Here is where we start to look at some of these other numbers down here. We've got AIC, And really what AIC is that's telling us the extent to which this model makes an improvement with regard to the trade-off between a good fit and an overly complex model. What do I mean by that? You want a model that's a good fit. In other words, the model very closely aligns with the actual data that you've got. But you can sometimes get there by adding and adding and adding and adding variables. And while the fit might improve, in actual fact, by adding so many variables, you've created other problems in the background that you can't necessarily see. Like there might be multicollinearity. The model becomes too complex. You want the simplest possible model that you can to give you the best predictor or the closest fit to the data. That's what you're looking for. It's called the most parsimonious models. You want the least possible number of variables that's going to give you the best possible answer. So AIC will tell you that, and what you're looking for is an AIC that's going down. So compared to, the AIC here is 803, and if we compare that to the glucose only model, glucose only was 812. So it has gone down, so hooray, it's an improvement. The next number we're going to look at is residual deviance, and again, in the glucose only model, it was 808. We want that to go down in our new model, adding variables, and it's now 797. So it has gone down, and that's a good thing. Okay, I've got notes, by the way, on this page. I'm not going to go into all of that detail right now, but here's your AIC, and we talked about the fact that we want that to go down. Here's your residual deviance, and we said we want that to go down, okay? And this is a measure of how well the model fits the data. So it's a summary of the discrepancies between the observed data and the model's predictions. Okay, so that's what the residual deviance is. We want that to go down. And if age is statistically significant, the residual deviance has gone down, the AIC has gone down, we think that this is a good candidate to be included in our model. It's early days, and we're going to talk about how to build the model in its, properly in another video. But for now, we're going to leave it at that. If you want access to this page to see all of the code, you can just copy the code, stick it straight into RStudio and replicate what I'm doing. You've got access to the data. Please click on the link that's on the screen right now. Otherwise, take care. Don't do drugs. Always do your best. Don't ever change. Speak to you soon. Bye.